peoples of the worldwide federated internet. What's good? Sometime when I watch what's going on, people watching, through the lens of social media, the news, etc., I wonder how people grew up. I wonder what they learned, if they learned anything, what they were taught, what values were they taught. And one of the biggest things I wonder, watching people and seeing how they carry and conduct themselves, I honestly wonder, were these people ever corrected growing up? Did they ever get chastised? I'm not going to make it a blanket statement and say you can tell, but I do believe sometimes you can tell whether a person was ever corrected or whether they received any chastisement as a child. It's a touchy subject, especially for parents. Many people have a lot of polarizing views on this topic, but I just want to look at what the Bible says about the topic, as I always do. So let's get into this. In the book of Proverbs, chapter 22 and verse 15, the Bible says, "Foolishness is bound in the heart of a child, but the rod of correction shall drive it far from him." That word bound means a limit, the line which comprehends the whole of any object or space. It differs from boundary. See the latter, talking about the latter definition. So the latter definition is bound is applied to kingdoms, states, cities, towns, tracts of land, and to territorial jurisdiction. So the original territorial jurisdiction of foolishness is in the heart of a child. It's bound in the heart of a child. But the Bible's telling us there's a way to move this thing out. But the rod of correction drive it far from him. Again, there is many polarizing views on the idea of chastisement. There's some people, I've talked to people who believe that if you chastise your child, like physical chastisement, that teaches them how to hit. I disagree with that. And the reason I disagree with that is the things that the Bible teaches. I am not going to argue with God. God is the one who designed me, you, and everyone else. He designed everything. He created it all. I'm not getting ready to argue with the Creator, the Most High God of heaven and earth, about how something He created is supposed to be dealt with. I think that's foolish personally. But again, foolishness is bound in the heart of a child, but the rod of correction drive it far from him. In the book of Proverbs, again, I'm going to be in Proverbs a lot. Chapter 29 and verse 15, the Bible says, "The rod and reproof give wisdom, but a child left to himself bringeth his mother to shame." It's not every time you deal with a child, it has to be physical punishment. Sometimes it needs to be, but it doesn't always have to be. The Bible says the rod and reproof give wisdom. I'm going to give you an example. My youngest son, I know I always bring him up, but he was my knucklehead when he was younger. He was just one of those kids that if there was a way to get into something, he was going to find it. So I was overseas and he was getting into some issues with his mom. And I told him I was going to deal with him when I got back from overseas. I think I had like another 45 days till I got home. And he thought I was joking. I told him, I said, son, you keep it up. This is what I'm going to do. I explained to him what I was going to do. He thought I was joking. I got home, got off the plane. I want to say it was the next day. I picked him up. This is when iPod Touches first came out. He was so happy he had this iPod Touch. He brought his iPod Touch. I went into a pawn shop, took the iPod Touch from him, sold it for whatever menial amount of money they gave me. I took a loss, but you know what? I didn't care because I was willing to take that loss for him to learn this lesson about consequences for his actions. And I took the money I got. We went to Walmart and he watched me spend that money on frivolous things. I cannot even remember what I spent it on. And none of it went to him. He learned a valuable lesson. There is consequences to my actions. My oldest daughter, I'll never forget this. I was overseas. Again, my kids always tried stuff with their mom when I was overseas. I think I had just got overseas. So I was overseas for 90 days before I came home. She did something. I told her, when I get home, I'm gonna definitely chastise you for this. Now, mind you, I got 90 days to go. Literally, this happened. I got home, and this happened with my youngest son as well. Kids don't learn from watching their siblings sometime, even though they should. I got off the plane. I went home. I took a shower. I drove over to my ex-wife's house. She let me in. I chastised my daughter, told her I loved her, and I dipped. You know what that showed my kids? This man is not playing. If he says there's going to be judgment for something that was done, that judgment is coming. There's no escaping this. There's always several ways you can deal with things when it comes to children, and every child is unique. Some children might have to be chastised more than others. Some children, having a conversation with them will work. Correcting something, sitting down and telling them, you can't do this. This is not going to be allowed. Some children, you got to take some things away. Some children, you got to eliminate some things. Right? So it's not always physical punishment, but you cannot remove that off the table. And I think in doing that and completely removing that off the table, I think you actually do a disservice to kids. And I don't think it actually helps, contrary to popular belief. In the book of Proverbs, again, chapter 13 and verse 24, the Bible says, he that spareth his rod hateth his son, but he that loveth him chasteneth him betimes. Now you would think, according to popular wisdom, the opposite of this would be true, because that's how this is argued today. It's today amongst my generation. I would consider my generation anyone between the ages of 35 and 45. I think there's been many parents within that age range that had this idea that I'm not going to chastise my kids. I'm just going to be their friend. And I think we're seeing the results of that played out in the streets. I think so. I'm not going to say that everyone who gets chastised automatically gets this. Look, men are wicked. We live in a fallen world with sin. Some people are going to be chastised, and it's still not going to change the trajectory of their life. That's going to happen. But I think many people who we see just doing outright foolishness in the streets, right? People burning down other people's businesses, going to restaurants and diners, shouting in people's faces, knocking over drinks. I think a bunch of these people were not corrected when they were children, and these things are now showing up in their adult life. That foolishness was not driven out while they were a child. I could be wrong, and I'm not saying that that's everyone, but I do believe some of these people are in that category. In the book of Hebrews, chapter 12, verses 6 and 7, the Bible says, "For whom the Lord loveth, he chasteneth and scourgeth every son whom he receiveth. If ye endure chastening, God dealeth with you as with sons. For what son is he whom the Father chasteneth not? But if ye be without chastisement, whereof all are partakers, then are ye bastards and not sons." But look at the criticism, not criticism, but the critique that's shown at the latter end of verse 7. What son is he whom the Father chasteneth not? Where's that son at that doesn't receive chastisement? This is what the Bible's saying. Where is that son? But if ye be without chastisement, whereof all are partakers, then are ye bastards and not sons. I think one of the things you teach kids when you chastise them correctly, again, there is a huge difference between chastisement and abuse. When you correctly chastise a child, they learn lessons that they can carry into their adult life. And if and when these young men and women get saved, they then understand, I can't just do whatever I want. There's consequences. There is consequences. This is something that many are not learning and getting at a young age, and it's not helping them at all. In the book of Proverbs, again, this is all through the book of Proverbs, chapter 23, verses 13 and 14. The Bible says, "Withhold not correction from the child, for if thou beatest him with the rod, he shall not die. Thou shalt beat him with the rod and shalt deliver his soul from hell." Positive things come from correctly chastising your children, contrary to popular belief. In the book of Proverbs, again, chapter 29, verse 17, the Bible says, "Correct thy son, and he shall give thee rest. He shall give delight unto thy soul." Again, good things come from proper chastisement. In the book of Proverbs, again, chapter 19, in verse 18, check this out. "Chasten thy son while there is hope, and let not thy soul spare for his crying." Did you catch that? You're probably thinking, catch what? Listen to that again. "Chasten thy son while there is hope. Let not thy soul spare for his crying." There is a window of opportunity in a child's life when it comes to chastisement. You can chastise this child and they can get correction, and they can be corrected of something that they might carry into their adulthood, and that might have a larger, more detrimental effect. You have a window of opportunity where you can correct that when they're younger. This is what has always confused me. And I think I've brought this up before. Now, I'm not saying that religion should be taught in schools or needs to be taught in school. That's not my argument, right? So understand that when I make this statement. But I've always found this odd. Within the public school sphere, it seems as though, just, looking at how things play out, the powers that be always want to make sure you can't talk about religion, you can't talk about God, you can't bring up the Bible. That can't be in schools. Here is what's mind-boggling. If you go to any juvenile detention center or any prison, what do you see in abundance, and what do they welcome and even solicit? Prison ministries. So you want to reach this person with the truth in the Bible when they've already done something wrong, when they've already been a scourge to society, a problem to society. That's when you want to reach them with Bible truth, but you don't want to do it while they're in grade school, while they're impressionable. We got things backwards. There is a window of opportunity for correction with children. And I wonder how many people out and about that have attached themselves to foolishness and done foolish things out here, destroying stuff, trying to tear down a country, destroying businesses, looting, burning people's stuff, getting in people's faces, getting in fights, drug dealing, murder, rape, all of that. I wonder how many of these people never got chastised correctly when they were children. Again, I always like to make the distinction between correction and abuse. Abuse can almost have the same effect as not having correction. So I'm not talking about abuse. I'm talking about proper correction. And I wonder how many of these people never received that. Something that's said in the book of Ecclesiastes is something that I tried to carry out in raising my children, because I wanted them to understand this. And this is definitely something we can see playing out in a negative way in society. In the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 8, verse 11, I've read this and gone over this before. Because sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily, therefore the hearts of the sons of men is fully set in them to do evil. I wonder how many people never got this. And this concept and this idea that we have in this day and age, that somehow chastising children and capital punishment within a household is a bad thing, is completely bananas to me. And again, I am not going to argue with God. God created us. We are his creation. Who am I to argue with God about how to deal with children? This is what the Bible teaches. But for some reason in this day and age, the idea of chastising children is somehow controversial. It's very odd to me how many simple Bible truths that are not really, you can read through the Bible and see, children need to be dealt with. Just different topics like that. How many simple Bible topics are made into such controversial issues? I don't understand. I do understand, but you get my point. This is one of those issues where you're not, look, for anyone out there who's a new parent, I want you to understand something. Don't abuse your children. Clearly, the Bible's not in support of that. But I will tell you, definitely, biblically, chastise and correct your children. Do not let things go unchecked. It is not going to help them for life, and it definitely is not going to help you. Y'all know what it is. Stay frosty, people.